Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. I'd love to know. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, let's jump in. Captain Eliza Monroe stood at the center of the Earth defense ship Resolute. Her eyes were locked on the screen in front of her. A strange object was approaching Earth. It didn't match anything they had seen before. It moved smoothly, almost silently, and didn't respond to any messages. "Lieutenant, what are we looking at?" she asked calmly. Lieutenant Singh tapped his screen quickly. "Unknown ship, Captain. No known signature. Not from our system. And it's not slowing down." For a moment, the entire command deck went silent. After hundreds of years of wondering, the moment had come. Humanity was no longer alone. "Send the first contact signal," Captain Monroe said, her voice steady even though her heart was racing. The signal was sent. Moments later, the screen lit up. A tall alien stood before them, skin the color of deep ocean, with silver eyes and 4 arms. He smiled, or something close to a smile. "I am Envoy Threx of the Galactic Council," the alien said in perfect English. "We come in peace, and we come with an offer." Across Earth, news of the alien ship spread faster than light. People were shocked, thrilled, afraid. For the first time, humanity faced the unknown, and it was knocking on their front door. Within days, leaders from around the world met with the Galactic Council. The Council sent beautiful ships, each carrying diplomats from different species. Some were tall and graceful, others short and strange, but all of them seemed calm, friendly, wise. In Geneva, Earth's new capital for interplanetary diplomacy, the Council made their proposal. "You are a young species," Threx explained. "Curious, brave, but you are not yet ready for the wider galaxy. Many civilizations destroy themselves before they are prepared. We wish to protect you." "Protect us from what?" asked President Amina Reyes of the United Nations. "The galaxy," said Threx. "It is not kind. There are dangers you do not yet understand. But under our care, you will be safe. You will grow." The Council offered gifts: healing machines, clean energy, advanced computers. They said humanity would join the Galactic Council as a developing partner. Not full members, but not enemies either. It sounded almost too good. Most world leaders agreed to join. After all, how could they say no? The aliens had the power to wipe out cities with one ship, and yet they hadn't. They offered peace. So Earth accepted. A new era had begun. Alien advisors came to help humans learn. They installed devices to help monitor growth and safety. They helped hospitals. They helped schools. They helped governments. But not everyone was happy. Captain Monroe watched all of it from afar. She had served in Earth's defense fleet her whole life. She had seen too much to trust too easily. "They treat us like children," she said one evening, staring up at the sky. "Maybe to them, we are," replied her friend and advisor, Commander Juno Park. "But children grow up." The Council called it friendship. But slowly, quietly, humanity began to feel smaller in their own home. Ships had to follow new rules. Labs had to report their research. Even military bases had Council observers. The world looked better on the surface, but something was off. Something was wrong. And soon, someone would discover just how deep the truth went. 5 years passed. The Earth looked different now. Cities glowed with clean energy. Hospitals cured diseases that once seemed unstoppable. Cars no longer needed fuel. Hunger became rare. Crime dropped. At first, it seemed like the council had delivered on their promises. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Dr. Naomi Zhang sat alone in her lab at the Lunar Research Center. The moon base was humanity's crown jewel before the aliens came. Now, it was half managed by them. Alien scientists walked the halls like teachers watching over students. Naomi was working on something special, a new engine design that could take humans beyond the solar system. She had been close to finishing it, but tonight, once again, her tests failed. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. She checked the equipment logs. Something had changed. Wiring had been altered. Her model had been tampered with. Naomi's hands trembled as she scanned back through security footage. There it was. Her council-assigned advisor, a tall, soft-spoken alien named Varel, had entered her lab while she was away. He wasn't supposed to be there, and he had touched her engine. The pieces clicked. He didn't want her to finish. He was making sure she couldn't. The next day, Naomi looked into other labs. Quietly, carefully. What she found chilled her. Across Earth, Mars, and even Titan, alien advisors were doing the same thing. Every time a human project reached a major breakthrough, it failed. And always, just after a visit from a council representative, they were helping, but only up to a point. Every step beyond that, they blocked it. She couldn't stay quiet. Naomi sent a coded message to someone she trusted, someone who still held some power. Admiral Isaac Cade, head of Earth's shrinking defense fleet. They met on a quiet ridge in Alaska, far from satellites and alien ears. Snow fell gently around them as they stood beside a small campfire. "I have proof," Naomi said, handing over a data stick. "They're not guiding us. They're stopping us." Cade reviewed the footage. He said nothing for a long time. "I've suspected this for years," he finally said. "Our fleet can't build new ships without council approval. Our patrols keep getting accidental system failures when we fly too far out. And our scientists, every one of them has a shadow." Naomi looked up at him. Why would they do this? Cade's eyes darkened. Because they're afraid. Afraid we'll grow too fast. That we'll stop needing them. He stared into the fire. And maybe that we'll fight back. A silence settled between them. Then he spoke again, softer this time. "We have to prepare, quietly, carefully, but we're running out of time." Naomi nodded. "What if it's already too late?" Cade turned to her. "Then we strike before they realize we've even begun." That was the night it started. A hidden message was sent to soldiers, scientists, engineers, and thinkers across the colonies. Anyone who had the skill and the will to resist. It had no name, no flag, just a simple message. We remember who we are, and we are not done yet. Back in orbit, Council ships continued their patrols. Their scanners watched every signal, every movement, but they didn't see this one. They thought humanity was still playing by the rules, but they had no idea the rules were about to change. The Council still thought Earth was quiet. They believed humans were happy with shiny gifts and soft control. But beneath that surface, something new was forming, something the Council didn't expect. It started small. A lab hidden deep under the ice in Antarctica. An old mining station on Mars that no one visited anymore. A dark facility floating near the rings of Saturn. At each place, small teams gathered. Engineers, soldiers, hackers, scientists. They called themselves the Boundary Line. Their goal wasn't to attack, not yet. Their goal was to learn, to build, and to prepare. They couldn't trust open channels, so they used old systems, underground wires, laser pulses, hand-delivered messages, things the Council no longer watched. Admiral Cade led them, but he wasn't alone. Naomi worked around the clock building new tech in secret. Others joined quickly, people who had seen the truth. Major Leo Garza, a former Special Forces leader. He had lost his job after questioning Council orders. Professor Aisha Malik, once a top mind in energy research, now banned from publishing her work. Tycho, a young pilot who had once flown escort for Council ships, until he realized they were smuggling Earth's rare minerals off-world without permission. Each one had a story. Each one was ready to fight. But not with guns, not yet. Their first weapon was truth. Naomi had found something hidden deep in the alien systems, a list. At first, it looked like a resource chart. But as she read further, her face turned pale. Each human colony had a number next to it, a value, a time estimate. Estimated depletion, expected extinction, acceptable loss. She didn't want to believe it. They don't just want to slow us down, she told Cade. They want to take everything, and when we have nothing left, we disappear. The Council wasn't protecting Earth. They were planning its end, quietly, over decades, so no one would notice. Cade stood silently, staring at the screen. We need to warn the others, he said. But the risk was high. If the Council learned what they were doing, they would shut everything down. They might even turn their ships against Earth. They had to be smart. They had to move faster. So the Boundary Line began its real work. In the abandoned tunnels of Ceres, they built new kinds of engines, quiet, efficient, and invisible to Council scans. On Titan, scientists built a communication system that bounced signals off Saturn's rings, scrambling them so no one could trace their origin. On Earth, secret factories under old subway lines began making parts for something big, something the Council thought impossible, a real human warship. Not the clunky, Council-approved patrol boats, not the old chemical rockets from the past. This one would be fast, silent, powerful, hidden. Its name would be Whisper. But before it could be built, the Council made its next move. A message was sent to all human colonies. Due to ongoing development concerns, all human research centers and colonies will now be overseen by Council administrators. This will ensure peace and safety. They didn't ask. They just did it. Alien officials arrived at labs and bases with new rules, new uniforms, and new eyes. They took over without a fight. To most people, it seemed like just another step. But the Boundary Line knew the truth. The Council was getting nervous. And nervous rulers make dangerous choices. Admiral Cade looked over a list of colonies that had been fully taken over. "We're running out of time," he said. Naomi nodded. "Then we have to stop hiding." The resistance had grown. The pieces were ready. Now they needed something else, a signal, something to wake the world. They didn't have to wait long. Her name was Mira Halden. She worked quietly as an assistant in the Council's Earth headquarters, deep in the mountains of Switzerland. Most people thought she was just another translator. She filed papers, carried data drives, and listened. She was invisible. But Mira was one of them, part of the boundary line. Every day, she copied tiny bits of data from restricted systems, hiding the files deep in old records that nobody checked. It had taken her 2 years to gain access to the Council's private database. And then, one day, she found it. A hidden file labeled Tier 3 Extraction Protocol. Species 742H. 742H was Earth. The file wasn't complete, but what she saw was enough. Earth was listed as a resource world, a planet to be used, stripped, and then left behind. Human extinction was listed as non-critical. The Council didn't need humans to survive. They just needed the minerals, the energy, and the space. Mira copied the file and sent a secure message to Admiral Cade. "I have the proof. I'll get the rest at the next meeting. They won't know I'm watching." But the Council had eyes, too. That night, she didn't return to her quarters. Her signal went dark. Her comms stopped responding. 2 hours later, a message appeared on every human screen. A cold voice read it aloud. "Mira Halden, a known terrorist, has been arrested for crimes against the Galactic Council. Her trial will be public to show the cost of rebellion." A video showed Mira in chains, standing before 7 alien judges. She was alone. Admiral Cade stood in front of a silent room, watching the broadcast. Soldiers, scientists, leaders, all watching a friend being used as a warning. "She was trying to protect us," Naomi whispered. The Council thought fear would stop the resistance. They were wrong. The boundary line called in every favor. They activated every shadow team. They planned a rescue. 6 agents in black suits, silent weapons, a secret path into the Council's building, built from months of study. Their mission: get Mira out before her mind could be erased. They moved at night during a staged protest outside the building. Hundreds of humans stood with signs, demanding justice, demanding answers. The agents slipped inside using forged credentials. They made it to the holding cells. They found Mira sitting calmly, waiting. "You're early," she said with a quiet smile. But as they started to leave, alarms blared. The Council had noticed. Guards poured into the halls. The team switched to Plan B, fast and loud. Outside, the peaceful protest turned into chaos. Council troops tried to seal the exits. They raised their weapons. A single shot rang out, then another. Then everything exploded into screams. Admiral Cade watched the news feed in horror. He saw Council soldiers firing into the crowd. He saw people running, children crying, bodies falling. 42 of the dead were kids, hundreds injured. The Council called it a terrorist attack. They said the humans started it. But the footage told a different story. Unarmed protesters, confused guards, overreaction, panic, and too much blood. Something broke that day. people stopped trusting the council. They stopped believing the lies, and for the first time, they got angry. In underground labs, the work accelerated. Weapons that had been hidden were pulled from crates. Shields long kept in storage were tested. Silent engines roared to life. Naomi stood before a group of engineers on Mars. We hoped we could grow quietly. We hoped the council would let us be. But they drew the line. Now we show them who we really are. Admiral Cade gathered world leaders on a secure channel. Presidents, generals, prime ministers. For the first time in human history, they agreed on one thing. No more chains. No more pretending. We stand. We build. We fight. And across the stars, in places the council never thought to look, ships were rising. The first of them was almost ready. Its name, Whisper. Its purpose, strike back. The hangar on Phobos, the small moon of Mars, was buried deep under the rock, invisible to council satellites. There were no markings, no surface lights. From above, it looked like just another lifeless crater. But under the surface, something was waking up. Engineers gathered around a long, dark shape, resting on a raised platform. It was shaped like a predator, sharp, lean, quiet. Not built for defense, built for speed, stealth, and bite. Captain Layla Stroud walked along the hull, her gloved fingers brushing the sleek black metal. "This is it?" she asked. "Yes," said Naomi, smiling for the first time in days. "She's ready." Stroud nodded. "Then let's make some noise." The ship had been called Whisper for a reason. No heat trail. No radio ping. No visible propulsion. The council scanners wouldn't even know it existed. And Whisper had a mission. Mars was under a quiet lockdown. No guns, no war. Just a slow, choking grip. Council ships sat in orbit, watching every transport, blocking new supplies, halting construction, and enforcing resource audits. People were going hungry, and the council said it was for their safety. Whisper launched silently. The hangar doors opened with barely a sound, and the ship slid into the void like a shadow slipping across water. Council patrols didn't even blink. On board, Captain Stroud and her crew of 12 stayed focused. No big speeches, no music, just steady breathing and tight eyes. They had trained for this moment. The council blockade didn't expect trouble. Human ships were slow, clumsy, and loud. At least that's what they believed. Whisper flew through the blockade like smoke. It didn't fire. It didn't shout. It slipped past the largest ship, dropped a coded packet into Mars's satellite grid, and turned away. A moment later, every colony on Mars lit up with the same signal, a pulse of light in the sky and one line of text on every screen. We are not alone. We are not afraid. The line has been crossed. The message spread like fire. People ran into the streets. They cheered. They cried. Some fell to their knees, realizing they were no longer forgotten. On Earth, President Kira Ndoye stood in front of the old United Nations building. Cameras hovered around her. Her voice, calm but full of fire, carried across every human colony. For too long, we've been told what we are: children, pets, subjects. Today, we say something new. We are people. We are proud, and we will never bow again. On Titan, Ceres, Luna, and even Europa, People raised flags bearing a new symbol, a broken chain wrapped around a star. The council responded immediately. Their warships moved to contain the spread of unrest. Patrols doubled. Curfews began. Warnings flashed on public feeds. Do not trust the rogue humans. They threaten peace. But it was too late. Because Whisper had delivered more than just a message. It had dropped packets of real proof. Files stolen from the council archives, showing resource theft, sabotage orders, and extinction plans. People didn't want to believe it. Now they didn't have to. On board the Whisper, Captain Stroud received a message from Admiral Cade. "Nice work," he said. "Now get ready. That was just the spark. The fire's coming." Back at Phobos, work began on the next ship. This one would be faster, armed, meant for more than whispers. Its name was already chosen, Thunderclap. But the council wasn't waiting. That same night, Naomi received an emergency transmission from one of their allies inside the council, an alien who couldn't stay silent anymore. The message was simple. They're preparing something, a weapon. It's old, dangerous, forbidden. They call it the Stellar Lance, and they're aiming it at Earth. Naomi read it 3 times. "They're going to burn the planet," she whispered. Cade's voice came through her headset a moment later. "We've got one shot," he said. "We find that weapon, or we all disappear." She looked up from the screen, jaw clenched. "Then we better get moving." In the silent dark near Neptune's orbit, a tiny ship floated, invisible to most sensors. Its hull was lined with a special material Naomi had designed, one that bent light, scattered radiation, and fooled council scans. On the outside, it looked like space junk. On the inside, it was one of the most advanced spy ships ever built by humans. Inside the cockpit, Commander Roan Vega stared at the glowing display. "There," he said, pointing. "Grid 9. Something's moving." His co-pilot leaned forward. "That's not a patrol pattern." "Nope," Vega replied. "That's a transport. Big one. And it's not logging flight data. Ghost ship." That was the first lead. Admiral Cade had assigned Vega and his stealth crew to follow every strange signal near the outer planets. The Stellar Lance wasn't just a rumor anymore. It had a shape, a location, a mission. And the Resistance had less than 7 days to stop it. The Council called the Stellar Lance a defense relic. In truth, it was a weapon from an ancient war, a device that could draw power from a star and fire it across light years. It could crack planets, boil oceans, and erase civilizations. And it was on the move. Naomi worked night and day with her small team to analyze the data Vega was feeding back. Every engine trail, every gravity ripple, every particle wake. She barely slept. Her eyes were red, her voice hoarse. "This thing isn't just heading toward Earth," she said one night. "It's lining up for a clean shot. They're going to fire from distance, from safety, and we'll never see it coming until the sky turns white." Captain Stroud, now back from her Whisper mission, joined her in the lab. "Can we stop it?" she asked. Naomi stared at the screen. "Maybe, if we get to it before it fires, or if we can rewire it." "Rewire a weapon that eats stars?" Stroud raised an eyebrow. Naomi gave a tired grin. "You haven't seen what I've been working on." In a hidden chamber beneath the old lava tubes on the moon, Naomi revealed her latest project. Project Eclipse. It wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror, a field device that could catch and bounce the energy beam before it hit Earth. But it needed to be on the target line. It needed to be close to the stellar lance when it fired, which meant someone had to get in. Not just near the weapon, on it. Admiral Cade called a meeting of his top operatives. The call was short, secure, and serious. "We have the location," he said. "Outer Neptune orbit, hidden inside a dead moon named Telvex 3. The stellar lance is buried beneath the crust. They're powering it now. We move in 40 hours. One chance. One shot." Stroud volunteered immediately. "I've already slipped through their nets once," she said. "Give me a team. We'll land, plant Eclipse, and get out." Cade nodded. "You won't be alone. We're bringing backup, real firepower." Far above Earth, the shipyards had finished 2 new vessels. Not scouts, not spies, warships. Their names were Defiance and Ashfall. Heavily armed, armor-plated, engineered for one purpose: survival against impossible odds. As the Resistance scrambled to prepare for the mission, something unexpected happened. An alien ship appeared in Earth orbit. But it wasn't Council. It bore the marks of the Valari, a quiet species known for neutrality and ancient knowledge. A single message was sent: "We have seen your truth. We offer help. We cannot fight, but we can share what we know." Ambassador Xena, a Valari elder with pale gray skin and soft silver eyes, met privately with President Ndoye and Admiral Cade. "There is something you should understand," she said. "The stellar lance is not just a weapon. It is a signal. If fired, it tells the galaxy, we are willing to destroy. And that signal will bring old enemies back to life." Cade frowned. "You're saying there are worse things out there than the Council?" Xena only nodded once. "Then we stop this now," Ndoye said firmly. "Before it starts a war we can't finish." Back in the hangar, Stroud strapped in as her strike ship powered up. Her team, 4 elite operatives, each trained for deep infiltration, checked their gear. Naomi handed her a small silver disc. "This is the Eclipse core," she said. "If you can get it close to the energy collector, I can trigger the reversal from here." Stroud took it and slid it into her chest rig. "What happens if it fails?" she asked. Naomi's face didn't change. "Then we burn." No one spoke as the hangar doors opened and the ship rose into the dark sky. On board, Stroud's voice came over the comm. "To the Council, you taught us to be small, to obey, to fear. But you forgot one thing. We're not just humans. We're survivors." The ship vanished into the stars, and far ahead, beneath the cold crust of Telvex 3, the stellar lance began to hum. The dark moon of Telvex 3 didn't look like much. A frozen rock with no air, no light, and no value to anyone, except the Council. And now, the Resistance knew why. Beneath its icy crust, hidden from scanners, was one of the most dangerous weapons in the galaxy: the stellar lance. Captain Layla Stroud's ship dropped silently toward the surface. Its thrusters were cooled, its lights dimmed, and its signal cloaked. They had only one shot to get in without being seen. In the back of the ship, her team waited. Sergeant Valen, demolition expert, checked the explosives. Lena Torres, systems hacker, synced her gear with Naomi's override protocol. Corporal Reich held the only weapon that could punch through alien armor. A railgun so powerful it had to be cooled between each shot. Dr. Eden Rowe, a former council scientist who had switched sides, kept staring out the window, his face pale. "They'll have guards," he said. "Lots of them. The lance is sacred to them. It's not just a weapon. It's a symbol." Stroud didn't blink. "Then we'll break their symbol." The ship landed in a deep crater, hidden from view. The team exited in silence, suits sealed against the cold. Ahead, buried in ice and rock, was a huge metal door. Old, alien, and humming with energy. Lena stepped forward, plugged in a cable, and began hacking. "Security's tight," she whispered, "but it's old code. I can break it." She worked quickly, her fingers dancing across her wrist pad. Suddenly, the door shuttered. A green light flicked on. "Inside," Stroud ordered. They slipped through and entered a wide tunnel lined with glowing panels. The temperature rose. The walls felt alive. The technology here wasn't just advanced. It was ancient and strange. As they moved deeper, they saw signs of council presence. Storage rooms, patrol paths, and power readings that pulsed like a heartbeat. Naomi's voice crackled in their earpieces. "You're inside. I've locked onto the Lance's energy core. It's 3 levels down, beneath the primary emitter chamber. That's where you'll need to plant the eclipse." Stroud acknowledged with a tap. They moved fast, avoiding cameras, ducking behind alien columns, listening for patrols. But halfway down, they heard footsteps. 3 Drachnid guards, tall, armored, and deadly. Valen mouthed silently, "Take them or wait." Stroud held up 3 fingers, then pointed forward. They struck fast. A silent dart to the neck, a railgun shot to the chest, a crushing tackle from Valen. Within seconds, the Drachnids were down. One tried to scream, but Stroud silenced him with a blade. "No alarms," she whispered. "We're still in the dark." They continued downward, reaching the Lance's heart. It was a massive chamber. In the center stood the stellar Lance's core, a twisting spire of golden coils and crystal arcs, glowing with the energy of a distant star. Sparks of raw plasma danced between the coils. The air vibrated with invisible power. Stroud stared, eyes wide. That thing could cook an entire planet. Naomi's voice came through again, shaky but focused. "You have 90 minutes. Once they finish charging, they'll fire. If the eclipse isn't in place by then..." She didn't finish. Stroud pulled the silver disc from her pack. The eclipse core. "Let's give them a surprise." Lena and Eden moved to the side of the core, checking for a slot or port. Eden found it first, a narrow seam near the power loop. "Here," he said. "This connects to the star intake. If we plant it here, it'll redirect the energy before it launches." They moved carefully, placing the device and syncing it with Naomi's remote link. Lights blinked green. Ready. But just as they finished, the alarms screamed. They had been found. Red lights filled the chamber. Voices shouted in alien tongues. Boots pounded the metal floor above. Stroud turned to her team. "Hold the room," she ordered. "No one gets to that core." Valen took cover behind a pillar. Torres readied an EMP pulse. Reich aimed his railgun toward the main hallway. The first wave of guards stormed in. Blaster fire lit up the chamber. Reich fired. The railgun roared, sending a drachnid flying backward into the wall. Valen threw a shock charge that knocked 3 more flat. Torres sent an EMP burst that cut the lights, but only for a moment. Eden crouched near the core, protecting the eclipse. Stroud fired again and again, her shots precise, her face calm. But the enemy kept coming. Back on Earth, Naomi watched the feed from the eclipse. She saw the gunfire, the warnings, the countdown. "You have to hold another 7 minutes," she said. "Just 7. In orbit, above Neptune, Defiance and Ashfall arrived at the edge of the moon's sensor field. Cade's voice came through to the fleet. "They know we're coming now, so let's give them a reason to be afraid." On the moon, Stroud ducked behind the core as another blast shook the room. Lena shouted, "They've got heavy weapons." Valen growled, "We're not leaving this place alive, are we?" Stroud glanced at the eclipse. Lights still blinking green, countdown still running. "We're not leaving," she said, "but we're finishing the job." Then behind them, a new sound echoed. A council ship was descending. Something huge. And above Earth, Naomi's monitors began flashing red. The stellar lance was reaching full charge. Time was almost up. The chamber shook. A deep, throbbing hum filled the air, the kind of sound that vibrated through bone. The stellar lance was reaching its peak charge. Golden arcs of energy leapt between its crystal arms, brighter now, faster, angrier. Captain Stroud pressed her back against the pillar, blinking through the smoke. "Status!" she shouted. "Torres is hit," Valen called out. "Not fatal, but she's down." Reich knelt beside her, dragging Torres behind cover. "She's breathing. Took a blast to the shoulder." Naomi's voice crackled in their ears. 4 minutes. That's it. Just hold 4 more. But they all knew. 4 minutes in a fight felt like forever. New troops poured into the upper balconies. Tall insectoid warriors with curved blades. Drones hovered above, firing down. The team was surrounded. Stroud gritted her teeth. "No retreat," she whispered. "No surrender." Then the floor trembled harder. And this time, it wasn't the lance. It was something above. A rumble, a thunder, a shock wave. Outside the moon, Defiance and Ashfall had arrived. Admiral Cade stood tall on the bridge of Defiance, looking out at the icy shell of Telvex 3. His fleet had moved fast and quiet, but now they lit up their engines. "Target the surface defense grid," he ordered. "We're punching a hole." Ashfall's rail cannons fired first, massive blasts that split the crust of the moon like cracked glass. Defiance followed, launching kinetic slugs that tore through ancient hangars and satellite towers. On the moon, the chamber's ceiling cracked. Dust and sparks fell as the vibrations rocked the installation. Stroud looked up. "That's our cue." Valen popped out from behind cover and launched a thermal charge at the eastern hall. The explosion sent a wave of flame into the next squad of drachnids. Reich let out a short laugh. "We're gonna make it, Captain." But Eden, still kneeling near the lance corps, looked up with fear. No, 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 he said. They're overriding something. They're trying to fire early. Stroud rushed over. Can they do that? Eden's hands flew over his pad. Yes, but if they do, the weapon won't be stable. It'll burn too hot. It could... He didn't finish. Naomi's voice came back. Layla, listen to me. If they fire early, they'll overload the lance, but we still have one shot. You have to trigger the eclipse now. Stroud didn't wait. She slammed her hand down on the control ring beside the device. A low chime echoed in the chamber, followed by a growing blue glow from the core. The stellar lance's light turned violent, wild tendrils of plasma flaring out like claws. All across the moon, alien engineers screamed and ran. Emergency protocols activated. Doors slammed shut. Eclipse is sinking, Naomi confirmed. Redirect sequence starting. I need 90 seconds. Stroud spun around. Protect the core, no matter what. The team closed ranks. Reich took up the front, firing into the stairwell as waves of council guards rushed down. Valen stood behind a crate, covering both flanks, his rifle steady and silent between bursts. Even Torres, wounded and gasping, dragged herself up to cover the rear with her sidearm. The lance screamed now, a shrill, cracking sound, like a dying sun crying out. And then the room flashed white, not from the lance, from the eclipse. A sudden, shimmering wall of blue light expanded around the core. The energy beams stopped twisting forward and instead began folding inward. Naomi's voice broke through, trembling but alive. Redirect complete. The beams coming back to them. In Council Command, far across the system, alarms rang out. Red lights. Failsafes failing. And on the edge of space, where fleets watched Earth like hunters, something changed in the stars. A ripple, a bending, a sound. Not heard, but felt. And then, light. The stellar lance discharged, but not toward Earth. It turned inward, folding its fury back on itself through a twisted lens of human ingenuity and stolen knowledge. The power didn't strike the blue planet. It struck the fleet that had ordered it. 23 council ships, waiting in high orbit for confirmation of Earth's doom, were suddenly swallowed in a blinding wave of fire and sun. Their shields melted, their hulls cracked. Their silence became dust. Admiral Cade, watching from Defiance, turned away from the blast. They never thought we'd hit back, he said. Now they'll never forget it. But back on Telvex 3, inside the lance chamber, all was chaos. The floor shook. The core trembled. The ancient device had not been designed for feedback. Cracks spread through the ceiling, and the spire began to collapse. Stroud grabbed her comm. Eclipse is done. Pull us out. Naomi's voice came through, barely audible. Evac ships inbound. 2 minutes. Stroud turned to her team. Fall back. Everyone, move. The operatives ran for the exit tunnel, dodging falling beams and bursts of fire. The walls groaned. The lance, once the Council's proud weapon, was now a dying star in a steel tomb. Outside, through the rising smoke and dust, Their evac shuttle descended, battered, fast, and just in time. The side door slammed open. Cade's voice crackled in their ears. "You did it. Get on board. The galaxy just changed. And you lit the match." The evac shuttle soared through Telvex 3's upper crust, just as the stellar lance collapsed inward. A shock wave burst from the heart of the dying weapon. Cracks ripped across the moon's surface like angry scars, and a plume of golden light erupted into space. The blast rolled outward, silent but massive, flashing across the stars. Inside the shuttle, Captain Stroud sat breathless, gripping the side rails. Her armor was scorched. Her voice barely worked. But she was alive. So was Reich, Valen, Torres, and Eden. All bruised, all bleeding, but alive, and they had done it. On the Bridge of Defiance, Admiral Cade watched the explosion fade on the main screen. Around him, the crew stood in stunned silence. Some wiped their eyes. Others just stared. Then someone whispered, "We stopped it." Cade nodded slowly. "No," he said. "We reversed it." Back on Earth, the news spread faster than light. The stellar lance, the Council's ultimate weapon, had been destroyed. Not by another empire, not by a massive fleet, but by humans. By those the Council had called primitive, young, and unworthy. Across the colonies, people cheered, danced, wept. Children in refugee shelters on Mars held signs that read, "We're still here." In alien cities far from Earth, silence filled the council chambers. No one dared speak first. And then something even more shocking happened. Others stood up. The Velari made a public declaration, withdrawing from the council and calling for a new galactic alliance based on equality and peace. Then came the Zorathi, long under the council's thumb. Then the Genini. Then the Orcs Syndicate, one by one. Within a week, 9 species had left the council. And in their place, they reached out to humanity. On Titan, a new summit was held. Not on some gleaming council world, but on one of Saturn's coldest moons, a place humans had once built just to prove they could. Delegates came. Some traveled for weeks. Some in silence, unsure what to expect. And when they arrived, they found something shocking. Not an army, not a throne, not a wall, but a round table. In the center of the room stood President Kira Ndoye, flanked by Admiral Cade, Dr. Naomi Zhang, Captain Stroud, and Ambassador Mira Halden, newly freed and honored. "We're not here to conquer," President Ndoye said. "We're here to build." Dr. Zhang stepped forward next. "We shared our science freely, and in return, we ask only one thing: respect, not for our strength, but for our right to grow." Alien eyes watched her, silent, waiting. Then the High Speaker of the Velari stood. "We came afraid," she said softly. "Afraid of war, afraid of change. But now, we are ready." She walked forward and placed her palm on the table. "I stand with Earth." The room buzzed. Then another delegate came forward, and another, and another. By the end of the summit, 37 species had signed the Titan Accords, a new agreement built not on control, but cooperation. A new name was chosen, the Free Galactic Assembly. Back on Earth, a monument was built at the site of the Geneva Massacre. Simple, stone, quiet, and carved into the base were the words once spoken by Mira Halden, whispered in secret before the world knew the truth. They drew a line to keep us small. We erased it and drew a circle instead, so no one would ever stand alone again. Years passed. The galaxy changed. Old powers fell. New friendships grew. And through it all, the people of Earth remembered the day they stood up. Not just with weapons, but with courage, with unity, and with hope. They were no longer the outsiders. They were no longer the students. They were the ones who lit the fire, the ones who dared to strike back, and the ones who would never be overlooked again. Humanity had arrived, and the stars would never forget it.